Welcome back, Life Sciences. I hope you had a good break. As I say to you, just get that little bit of a stretch, get the oxygen going, get the blood flowing, makes our brain so much clearer, especially for the section when it comes to human evolution. As I said, I know we all struggle a little bit, but we'll be fine. What have we looked at? We've looked at the concept of where the human part, where our ancestors came from, this common ancestor that we spoke about. And remember what we said, when we look at it, we belong to a group, this order of primates. And the reason we belong there is because we have things in common. Now, each time we go along the classification, right, the criteria gets more and more, right? You need to be more specific. It needs to get more precise. And that starts to exclude a lot more individuals. So at the end, we looked at this concept of bipedalism. So what do you think one of the driving forces was of the split around about 6 million years ago was that organisms, I'm going to use them organisms, but our living ancestors, right, walked habitually on two legs. And that is very evident when we look at the anatomy. How did the skeleton change, right? And with that anatomy, we link a lot of other things. What tools do we see? What kind of cultures did they have, right? So this development of this bipedalism brought about this whole range of differences that we're going to look at. Okay, as I said to you, look at all the words again, right, can be a little bit confusing. So guys, when we look at, right, this whole human evolution from ape-like structures to what Homo sapiens today, we rely on three sets of evidence. Now, the first set of evidence is fossil evidence, and you would have looked at the concept earlier, all right, maybe earlier years of school, of what a fossil is. A fossil is an organism usually that had bones or something hard, and it's basically left like a picture behind. I think for a lot of us, this is the one piece of evidence we can cling to because we can see it. All right, guys, cultural evidence. Now, what does that mean? We actually, through a time, tool making. What do we mean by tools? Hunting, right, cutting food, etc. And we're going to notice certain trends there. Right, so with the skeletons, what did we see with them? Did they have certain tools? Did they maybe live in a cave where they painted? Did they have some kind of ritual how they buried the young? And that gives us this whole route that we're on. And then the last bit of evidence that we look at, and this is pretty much when we look at out of Africa, is genetic evidence. How similar are we genetically? And here, right, when it comes to human evolution, we rely a lot on mitochondrial DNA, right? Remember, the DNA is found, deoxyribose nucleic acid is found in the nucleus, but the mitochondria in itself had its own little ring of DNA called the mitochondrial DNA. And that DNA, when you looked at sexual reproduction, that DNA is when the sperm and the egg fuse, the man's falls away. And we have this picture of the female DNA, so we kind of get an idea of history that is pretty much unchanged throughout time. And that can lead us to this plan of, right, where did humans come from? Where were they found, right? Those concepts that are quite important. Guys, when it comes to the human, all right, evolution and the fossils, the skeleton is a really important part here. Now, the skeleton you would have done maybe in earlier years as part of your syllabus, but it's really important that you understand, and I'm going to say it here, the trends. Right, what do I mean by trends? Okay, guys, let's start. Let's take, for example, all right, this whole structure is the skull. This structure is the cranium. So it's really important that you understand what the skeleton is. So we start off with primates. Let's start off with gorillas or monkeys, all right, or apes. they've got a very small cranium. All right. And what did we notice over time, the trend? Have a look here. Look at the cranium. What does it start to do? It starts to get bigger. So the trend is, right, what are we starting to see? A bigger cranium, right, not a bigger skull necessarily, so the words are important. And with that bigger cranium, what comes? A bigger brain. Intelligence. What does intelligence allow us to do? Make better tools, draw, speak, keep fire going. If I can keep fire going, I can keep warm. If I can keep warm, I can go into areas where it's colder. If I've got a fire, maybe I can eat different kinds of food. Maybe proteins. What do proteins do? Make me stronger. If I'm stronger, what can I do? I can go search for food. So it's this whole concept of the brain, all right, the evidence, not so much the brain, this cranial capacity leading us to this whole concept of intelligence, cultural evidence, tools, burials, etc. What else do we see? Remember, with bipedalism, when I walk upright, my whole skeleton has a slight tweak to it. Right? Guys, I must be honest with you, walking on 2 feet, it's not like, wow, the most amazing thing ever. Why? We get back pain, it's sore. But what did it allow us to do? Hunt, carry our babies, all right? Search for things, okay? That was the things that we were able to see when we did it. So when we're looking at this concept of trends, you guys, as I said, this is a revision, so I don't want to get too much detail. You need to look at the skeleton. How did the brain, cranium change? Teeth, jaw, my arms shorter because I don't need to swing, right? My legs longer. What happened to my toes? I'd love to be able to grab with my toes. I can't even pick up a towel, right? What happened to our feet? It all changed, right? Slight changes to make walking better. It was a natural, as far as natural selection goes, it was a favored characteristic. Guys, very often when we get to questions on these, you need to be able to distinguish between, all right, so like apes are on one side, humans are the other, and we look at that whole fossil record. In between is the Australopithecines, okay, like this, kind of like in between the two groups. Let's have a look at a typical question. So it tells me here, the diagrams show, all right, the skulls of 2 species of primates. So here you are totally reliant on what the structures are. Okay, the first question. Tabulate 3 observable differences between skull 1 and skull 2 that show trends in evolution. This could be quite a tricky one. Okay, so the first thing is tabulate. So what am I going to do? I'm going to draw a table. I don't know how picky they are about a heading, but if you want to, you can put your heading in. So I'm going to say skull 1, and I'm going to say skull 2. Now they want to know the trend. Okay, so skull 1 has a small cranium. You can't say brain, guys. It's not about the brain. You can't, it's a skull. What do we see in skull 2? Cranium, the trend. Cranium becomes much larger. There we go, about the trend. Let's have a look over here. Let's go for the obvious. Large jaw. Right, so what over here, what do we notice? The jaw becomes much less prominent. Do you notice the words we use? All right, prominent, smaller. There's quite a few that we can go there. All right, what's the next one we're going to do? A lot of you don't like this one because, all right, you have to spell it, and that's a prognathus or a brow ridge. I'm going to go with nice obvious ones. Okay, large teeth. And again here, the trend, it is, even if it's the same thing, teeth become smaller. All right, there's a few more that we can do. All right, another one we can concentrate on here is about the bridge, brow ridge. Okay, so it's quite a few. They're not asking you to compare the differences. Observable, you must see them, all right, and they want to know the trends in evolution. Our time is running out, but I just want to show you the kinds of questions. Give 4 characteristics of the upper limb that humans share with other primates. So guys, what are we going to do? We're going to go things we have in common. All right, now remember, you've got to go back to that little picture that we had. Upper limb, so only the arm. So what would you talk about here? The shoulder joint, the opposable thumb. All right, what else have we got? All right, our shoulder joint, opposable thumb, shorter arms. All right, and our nails. Okay, there we go. Those would be the 4 things that you would come up with. Okay, guys, I'm afraid that's all we have time for. We're going to go to a small break and we'll be right back.